Yes, hey Phil. How you doing, man?
Yeah, it's good. So,
Very well, thank you. You can hear me all right?
yeah,
Wicked,
I
wicked.
can hear you fine.
How are you?
Yeah, good, good. Well, I'm in Melbourne, so it's all sort of lockdown here.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. We might get to that a little bit later, but obviously we're recording these videos as a way to, I guess, engage with the community because BPAC is supposed to be happening. I'm not sure when this video is going to be coming out, but pretty much around this time. It's the end of July right now. August is supposed
Yep.
to be when BPAC was going on, and unfortunately, of course, it's not happening with everything that's happening in the world, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, we're trying to engage with everybody and make sure that we're touching base. So yeah, how have you been keeping with everything that's going on?
Yeah, good. Just sort of doing my usual stuff. I mean, I work from home anyway,
Okay, yeah.
so it's nice. Yeah, yeah.
Super affected you a whole lot personally?
It's been quite good. Like, not saying COVID's been good, but I work from home anyway, and I also have my daughter at home, so I'm always sort of working at night and up in where my studio is now, like for
Yep.
drawing, all that sort of stuff I do, and book design. And it didn't really affect that much, but in relation to the video game community, it's been quite good because a large part of through the day or early morning and things like that, because it's such a connected community. So a lot of the people I speak to through the day, like I might catch up with people just interstate, but also, in the US or in Canada or, it's a bit all over the place, or, there's players in New Zealand. So it's been quite good like that. It's sort of not as lonely, I suppose, as it might be for some. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like, my wife's working from home, and my daughter still gets to go to school because she's at, well, they call it kindergarten in Melbourne, but it's really preschool.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all a bit fun. Are you from Melbourne?
No, I'm from Brisbane, born and raised. We did call it kindergarten when I was growing up. Now I think it may have actually changed names to prep. I think they call it prep now.
Yeah, I'm confused. See, kindergarten was always just the first year at real school,
Yep.
like when you actually put a uniform on and went to school, whereas here, kindergarten is just not uniformed, and it's just like what was called preschool. Anyway,
Yep.
so yes, so it hasn't really, apart from being able to sit in a cafe and things like that, it hasn't, and taking my daughter to the museum and things like that, it hasn't really affected my way of life that much. I just do what I normally do.
Yep. And you're living in Melbourne at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Cafes are a pretty big culture in Melbourne. That's a lot of people are really hurting. They can't go out and
Yeah, I've got friends who own cafes, and they're, it's pretty difficult. But certainly Saturday and Sunday mornings are pretty empty, and normally everyone's sort of making their pilgrimage to cafes and stuff. But it's pretty quiet. But I'm not in one of the heavily locked down suburbs. I'm in the eastern suburb. I'm in Hawthorne, so I'm
not in Brighton.
No, I'm not. Or sort of more Footscray and place like that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, as you said, you have been, like, this hasn't hit you personally very much. You have still been very productive throughout this time. Actually, one of the things I've been really enjoying from you is a lot of your, I guess, political cartoons that you've been.
Oh yeah, they're sort of
They're good.
They're just a well, they're just been a throw off from some other stuff I've been doing with an author, which is submissions to the New Yorker, but we don't really want to deal with Trump in that way, and so I thought, I'll just do them on the side. But I was going to do more rendered caricatures, and I thought Trump doesn't deserve it. So what you see, the speed, it actually takes me longer to scan the image because I've got a scanner, and so it takes me longer to scan the image than it does to draw it. So I just go,
because he doesn't deserve the time.
Yeah, like the most recent one, which was, what did I do? Like, make the same mistake again. It took me more time to go into Photoshop and color, because I felt the hat needed to be red in that case. It took me more time. Right. That was the biggest part of the job. Like, I really don't spend much time. But the problem with Trump is you can't stay on top of it. There's just so many jokes. So it's just like, he's done this complete turnaround, this complete pivot recently on COVID-19. So I had this idea of, you have lots of them. You could do him as Two-Face. You could do him as like a push me, pull me, one Trump at one end and one at the other. And there's just so many. Like, I've got this idea of, like, the question, he was asked the question the other day, like, as your years as president, what will you look back on as fondly you did as a president, you know? And I sort of had this idea of Trump. I was talking to George Riley. He sort of planted the seed of this. George Riley, the DK3 world record. And he's saying, you don't imagine Trump in his mind, has he? So I just imagined him as, like, in his own mind, he probably thinks he's like Elvis Presley. Like, he's just adored by fans, you know, good-looking guy. But I was imagining him as a fat Elvis, you know.
Yes, later Elvis.
Yeah, he's got this idea of himself. So there's, like, so when he did, like, there's nothing you can top with. He just says stuff, and you think, oh, there's another joke, and like another joke. It's just can't say. It's just so many of them. So when I don't get a chance to do one, all these ones you've had, and they don't take any effort because they're so. Everyone's got a Trump joke. It's so easy, but
it is a joke.
Fine, you don't do one, and all these ones they're not worth it anymore because he's already said something stupid, you know, or outrageous.
All right, cool. Before we get taken off on an entire Trump thing, because I'm sure we could both talk for hours on end about him. Do you want to give us a little insight into who you are in the world of pinball and arcade? Obviously, you're very important, but for those who don't know who you are,
yeah, well, probably not important. Well, in pinball, I'm not really in the pinball scene at all. But I would like to say, I mean, I'd be great. I mean, the pinball scene is. I mean, I've got to know it through Jimmy Moore and Steve Hyde in Canberra and a few others, but mostly, you know, you're talking to Jimmy and a few other players, you know, to do more recently. But it is an incredibly healthy, active community. Like, it's so well organised, you know, like it should be the envy of the arcade community, or, you know, like, it's so well done, you know, like it's really good. But I only know a few names, you know, but I'm not someone who knows pinball. I never really played it, but in the arcade world, like, it's old news now. I'm like 10 years old or more that I took the world record on Galaga, the 5-man one. And that sort of, and I don't really play video games. It was just something I did that year. And then I did that, and I ended up moving to Canada the following year, and then to the States. So I was down in the US a few times for different things, you know, like for the Big Bang in Iowa, like a Tom Walter Day's thing, and things like that. And at the first Kong Off, me and Michael Schroker and Josh Houselander and Nick Houselander were there doing recording, and I was doing a lot of footage, you know, going around filming with those guys and stuff. But and then I sort of disappeared for a while, largely because the community there was a lot of riffs in it and stuff, and I thought, oh, I don't need this, and I just sort of disappeared. And then I came back because of Score Wars with, of course, Andrew Barra was there at Score Wars, myself, and I felt then that there was a lot of strong Galaga players around who were doing a lot, and I felt that maybe a forum could encourage that. So I co-founded Galaga Forum with John Klinkle, and once the couple of world records were passed, the old marathon world record that was from 1989, I think it was, and then or something like that, or yeah, I think 89, and also the 5-man score, which Andrew Laidlaw had sat on because he passed my score from 2011. And so once they were passed, I thought, well, I felt that was good and done. So I sort of left that, or not left it, but I did. But John McNeil still has it. He's doing it, and then I was doing a bit of commentary over there. And I thought, and I remember saying to Andrew Barrow, like, it was a funny thing to say, but I said to him, I reckon this arcade community needs like, I can't remember how to word it exactly, but a fresh ambassador of some sort. Yeah. Like, you know, so I just thought, I'm going to lead from the back a bit. So I thought, I'm going to get back to Australia. I'm going to start writing articles, which I did for Twin Galaxies, and got to know Jimmy and did some commentary, and then did that article for the Guardian magazine, and then more recently initiated the ANZAP, you know, the Australian New Zealand Arcade and Pinball Hall of Fame, which I sort of talked about it a bit, and Jimmy Nails and I talked about it, and he said, we need a name. And he said, what about ANZAP? I said, done. And he said, shouldn't we talk about it with the rest of everyone else? I said, no, they don't give people a choice. Otherwise, we'll just be talking about it forever. ANZAP's great. We go with that and done. So I've been doing that, and we all took a bit of a pause this year because of COVID, but we're still doing stuff, as you know, a little bits here and there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I'm a lot of the work I've been like writing is leading toward a book eventually on Robotron. Yeah.
Book? Fantastic.
Yeah, on Robotron. Like but it deals with a lot of other games before. And people know I've been talking about it for ages, but the truth is my real thing is I'm in publishing, and I paint and draw, and I've got that many books I'm working on over there that this is not a priority. Like, it gets pushed to the side a lot. So it's not, so it gets left behind a bit. But but in many ways that's a good thing. So a lot of written of Galaga. There's only one more thing I've got to write on Galaga or Galaga, which is Jordan Dorrington's game from earlier this year or last year, where he took the marathon score in the 5-man one and the longest 2-man run in a single game, and that sort of concludes the point of Galaga. But it's about the idea if video games are a work of art, if they are artworks, which is the first masterpiece? And my argument is Robotron.
Yeah,
not the best work. It's just the first game that really. And a lot of people will disagree with that because they think I'm talking about the aesthetics, like because Pac-Man and that are very good-looking games with good sounds. But the fact that you can get a perfect game in it means it's flawed in my mind. So I'm looking at the people who have, not the casual gamer, but the people who have been pushing this game for decades now, and is there still game left in them? That sort of idea. Anyway, yeah. So it's that sort of stuff. So eventually it'll get done, but it's all being chipped away at.
Now you mentioned ANZAP just before. I remember at the BPAC last year, unfortunately, we had a little technical issue with the microphone as you were explaining what ANZAP is and why you founded it, essentially. Do you want to take some time now to, obviously we won't be able to do it word for word, what you were saying up there on the stage, but give...
I don't remember what I said.
But, give people explanation of what ANZAP is and why you founded it.
Well, it sort of has a long, well, I won't go into details, but basically the International Video Game Hall of Fame in the US asked me to join the committee. That sort of came about. And my feelings were that because it was the International Video Game Hall of Fame, I felt the umbrella of that term is just too big. Like I said, that's like if you founded the International Hall of Sport, like, and I was trying to explain, I said, like, if you did that in the US, who's your expert, who's your go-to person on cricket?
Yeah.
And you could, and I said, I was trying to explain, and cricket's far more popular in numbers than the NFL.
Yes.
Like, you put Bangladesh and you put India in there, the whole subcontinent, and so there's so many people who play it. And if you have no knowledge of this centuries-old game, who's the first person you induct? So you need someone on cricket. So you need one on lawn bowls, squash, skiing or whatever. Like cross-country skiing. There's just too many sports. So it's too. And I was saying, because they were having troubles with that Hall of Fame, I said, why don't you isolate it down to the American or the North American International Video Game, International Video Game Hall of Fame, whatever. No, it's not international. The North American Video Game Hall of Fame. Yeah. And I said that way you don't have to deal with Pac-Man because it's Japanese. You don't have to deal with the creators of the games, where they've got Williams and they've got Atari, which is US based, and other things you can isolate. It's still very big. It's still massive there. Yeah. And and they weren't that interested, and I said, well, hell with it. Let's do the ANZAP. And I think I might have mentioned it with Andrew Barrow and a couple of other people. We didn't have ANZAP. We just said the Australian, New Zealand, and we felt we can't do the Southern Hemisphere. None of us speak Portuguese or Spanish to get in touch with South America. And so I said, let's just do this. It's very isolated. So we're not going to induct Pac-Man because it's a Japanese, but we'll induct Pac-Man players and stuff. Yeah. So it's about players, but it's also as much about creators like David Hankin. We inducted for his
the cocktail cabinets that Hankin.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh, well, also the pinballs, early pinballs like the How's That, the Dillis How's That, and also the FJ Holden, those games, and Orbit 1, I think it is, and also and video games early. It's not just, even though it's arcade, that's just useful, but we're looking at video games in general, but we just felt that ANZAP was such a good acronym we had to go with it, and arcade is, anyway, they all come from that history, but so there were games like The Hobbit, which outsold Zork and got a Golden Joystick Award in a UK magazine many years ago, and there were lots of things that happened early on in Australia, it seems, and also Warlords, the PC game, which was, it was like right up there with StarCraft year after year, like it was an equal challenger, like a really highly awarded strategy game. And so we've got other people involved which aren't arcade people. We've got a few others, like we've got something like a game developers, and a staff member of Twitch has joined and things like that. So it's not just about the players, it's about the games themselves, and that's what but last year was very much about sort of starting with what we knew, which was pinball and arcade. Like yourself, you got an outstanding achievement for your point blank world record, and so it's.
Thank you very much.
What we're doing.
It does. If I can interrupt, sorry. It was honestly lovely to receive that. I wasn't expecting it. It was very, very nice. And I think that has almost inspired me, not for Point Blank. I think my Point Blank days are behind me. But, you know, to keep putting time forward and to keep engaging with this community and knowing that it is being recognized, it is being looked at, and it's not this weird thing. It's great. It's honestly so nice. And thank you for setting it up. Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say
No, well,
that.
well, it wasn't just me. There was a few of us involved, as you know, like Jimmy, of course, and Tanya Lowe, like she was involved as well. There was various people involved. Steve Hyde, Emma Stamatellis, who did the animation for the ANZAP logo, which I mean, I and her design. I think it was pretty much I designed it. She animated it, and she's doing some more animation stuff. And I'm going to forget other people who are on there. Lauren Clinic, she's involved. But as it grows, it's very much we want to keep it very community based. So if people who have got the energy to get involved, because the video game community, of course, has got plenty of money, and they're running a business and they're moving from title to title. And it seems to be in the case in the history of video games that they've, not in any deliberate way, but they haven't, for their own posterity, sort of kept a record. Well, certainly not a public accessible one in the same way, you know, like it's just how that industry is, I guess, you know. It's because it's, you know, it moves from platform to platform. So if you want to play an old game, luckily for MAME you can, but if, you know, like if you've got old music, you know, on record players, you can still play them on today's record players. Whereas to be able to play all the games you want on their original gear, it's going to fill a couple of garages, you know. I mean, and forgetting arcades, just PCs and consoles. So I think that what's happening in the video game world, I don't think anyone really knows, and I don't really know what it is or where it's going and who's involved. And one of the people I want to nominate this year, I won't say her name, but she's done a lot of fashion design. She did a lot for Halo in Australia. Yeah, and they actually, and she's a top seamstress or, you know, designer, and therefore, I don't know, it's not the right word, but designer and clothes designer and seams, you know, like sewing, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And what they do is they build all the costumes, then film them running around. So when they animate it again, so people don't sort of realise
like the movement of like the way it's supposed to look in the
And a lot of composers get a lot of work in this field, and a lot of animators do. So people seem to think that the video game industry is just, you know, programmers, and it's just all. It actually employs a lot of people and has a lot of money to do so, and a whole bunch of set skills, you know, because they've got. They can afford to do it. And I'm not saying therefore that validates it just because it makes money. I'm not suggesting that. But I think it can easily be overlooked as something that's just, you know, like it used to be seen as just a flash idea. It was going to, you know, and I think it's, you only got to look at, I was driven a Tesla for the first time the other day, and it still has a steering wheel, but there is a sense of like, wow, you know, like once that steering wheel's gone, the future's arrived. Like you can sort of see that. You know, my daughter's probably not going to learn to drive a car. She'll just look like a Tesla. You know, it'll be this Tesla kind of thing, you know, it'll be very different. So I think that the computers, you know, we do live in a digital age. We do. That doesn't mean everything's out the window. Like I think that lots of things are more valid than they've ever been, like painting and playing a trumpet and all that sort of stuff. But to think that somehow these are, you know, dangerous tools or have nothing to offer, or I mean, a lot of them are time wasting, but so there's a lot of other things are time wasting, you know, like movies can be. It's like a TV, like depending on what you watch on it. You could watch really informative things, or you could watch absolute garbage. And there's some garbage games out there that you shouldn't play. In my opinion, they're just a waste. They're just boring. But so I think in regards to ANZAP, it was an attempt to sort of acknowledge, you know, various players and designers and other people in the field who are deserving of. One is an outstanding achievement for someone who's done a single, you know, like yourself, you got Point Blank, and the other one is to be inducted for a broader body of work. A game could be inducted, or a person with that game, and things like that. And of course, they're never going to be on the level exactly, because some person's going to do, you know, there's no way of measuring this, but you know, it's something that hopefully as it grows, it'll become more experienced at that, and we don't make any real mistakes along the way. You know?
I want to take a little bit of time just to separate. I remember at BPAC, there was like this like myth that who is Phil Day, and as you said, you were a previous world record holder on Galaga.
Yeah,
huge achievement. game decades old that people have been playing non-stop since it came out, pretty much. Very, very impressive. The other one that I heard that I really want to... Are you related to Walter Day? Obviously the same last name, but I feel like that's
No.
something you probably get asked a lot.
No, we call each other Cuz for fun, because of
There
the
you
last
go.
name. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're not related. We're not related. The funny thing was,
Say to me, "Oh, that's Walter Day's cousin." I'm like, I don't think that's right, but
no, the funny thing was at the time, Pengu, the world record holder of Pengu, was a Rodney Day.
Rodney
His name's
Day.
Rodney Day. Yeah, we gave him an outstanding achievement. I don't think we managed to contact him or find out where he is exactly, but we've got him listed. So when we eventually get a website, which I think is being built up in BPAC at the moment, a website to track all our inductees and outstanding achievements, and he has it on Pengu. And when I got the second highest score, I was on ABC Radio in Canberra or something, because Walter Day had been in contact to Australia looking for Rodney Day because of his world record had just become 30 years old or whatever, or 20 years old. And I think it was, anyway, that's what he was trying to do. And at the same time, I was going for the world record. So all of a sudden it was this Walter Day, Rodney Day feel. It's like, anyway, it was just, I don't know why. It didn't mean anything. It was just one of those synchronicity kind of, it was just odd.
Well, hopefully we can put an end to the rumor.
Yeah, I was hoping it was going to be a more exciting rumor, like, maybe I was, I don't know what would be exciting, but
like a Johnny Bond style. I heard he wrestled an alligator or a crocodile.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. No. The only real contribution, like the Galaga thing, I bought the machine at the start of 2009, got the world record and sold the machine. Outside of that, there's a few games I'm interested in, Robotron being one of them. NetHack's another, an ASCII graphics game, which I don't play, but I think you could do a whole documentary on it. I think it's an interesting game. I'm particularly fond of Rygar as a game from when I was a kid. I think it's a game that, yeah, I really think I've been playing a bit of it. And there's someone who says he doesn't play games, but my wife out of nowhere bought a Nintendo Switch for Christmas last year.
Nice.
And anyway, they had Rygar, so I was playing that a bit. But I think it would do really well in the Donkey Kong community. I think it shares a lot of similarities because of control, but the drop down and things coming up from the bottom and all this sort of stuff. But as a short game, I'm interested in. I'm very much interested in seeing more competitive tracks made that can be played live, not these long, not anything against the Donkey Kong, like the Kong off and then those longer tracks, but like Galaga, I helped co-found that track with Dwayne Richards, Tanya Lowe, and John McNeil. And Galaga, I think, was a real success in its first year because of the shortness of the tracks, and it was very accessible to the audience, and you could see how the points were made. And I think any track could be any game can be made a track like that. I think it's got to accommodate. My feeling is that if you can't educate a new audience to arcade community, it could disappear. It's very volatile, especially since a lot of the arcade community, not video games, just the arcade community, because it's built around barcades, and you've got to get a new audience coming in. And as these tracks expire, you're not going to get. It's the equivalent to put it in an Australian sense. It's like if someone came from North America and said, "Let's learn about the game of cricket." You don't take them to a test match for 4 to 5 days. You take them to a T20.
Yeah, T20 or Big Bash.
Yeah, so I think these shorter tracks, you still keep the long tracks. People still go to them, but have ones where you can see the whole thing unfold in 15 minutes and then see the whole tournament unfold in 2 hours and go, I see what's going on. Whereas it's too much to take in. It's like watching chess as opposed like classical chess compared to blitz chess.
Yeah,
it's just too much.
Yeah, no one wants to watch Bobby Fischer's week-long tournament. Like as great as it is, it's a lot to.
Yeah, watching Spassky and Bobby Fischer in Iceland.
You said it a couple of times, and I just want to get your opinion on this because it's probably one of the most divisive things in arcade. Is it Galaga or Galaga?
I don't know. I always said Galaga, but then because of the US community, there's so much they say Galaga so much that I've sort of deferred to Galaga because I've become accustomed to saying it. But I used to say, I think I got it right. So I used to say Galaga, and now I say Galaga. But the interesting thing is, my wife, who has a little bit of knowledge of Japanese, but she's not, and I have some friends of mine who do speak Japanese. Well, they don't, and it's because it's a Japanese game. They don't actually have a sound for L They don't pronounce L's.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I won't be able to do it, but so it would be, so like same with Godzilla. So it's like Godzilla. They go R in that sound. So Galaga, where the gal would be Garaga. It'd be Garaga or Garaga or Garaga. It was not. So we're all getting it wrong.
We're all getting it wrong.
so sort of arguing over whether it's Galaga or Galaga. A Japanese person, he's just going, these morons. There's no L. What is that sound? Because it's not in there. It's not in there. You know, it's like the Czech. There's a Czech sound. A lot of kids don't learn till they're 11. It's from the back of the throat. This sort of sound, and so they don't have a sound for that. You know, just so I mean that's it. And see, these are sort of things that you know, like being lost. Well, not lost. We know about them, but they're sort of. It's like Jumpman, which is Mario. You know, Jumpman and Lady and all these sort of funny little things that exist. Like I don't know how. I think now this could be. I've never researched it or bothered to look it up, but I think Pac-Man there was a tendency to call it Puck-Man.
Yeah, I've heard Paku Man. Apparently that's the sound of eating.
Yeah, and when it was coming out of America, with Americans' tendency to sort of just change things, they were going to, of course, change the P to an F in saying it. So they went to Pac-Man, you know.
Yeah.
So it's sort of this. So I think there's a lot of things like that. But the real interesting one in the arcade community is how when games went from Japan to America, there was a tendency to make the games more difficult. You know, they tweaked them like Donkey Kong. You know. And I find that probably because they knew they could get more money, or maybe it was a different. I know I was talking to Barra up at the last Kong Off, or maybe whatever event I was up there for. I can't remember now. Kong Off, or whether it was Galaga or something or other. But there's in Japan they don't really track world records the way that the American or Wii Cup. They sort of just once you roll a game like Space Invaders, once you roll it at 10,000, I think it is, then go and play something else. You've defeated that game.
Yeah.
So once you get 1 million points on Galaga, you've defeated it. And there is truth to it. It's just you're just honing a skill, you know. But you've done it. So once you roll it, that's it. Or once you run it to the end, the kill screen, or that's it. You've done the game. Find something new. So you're credited a point. You know, like it's sort of saying you've done that one. You've done that one. You've beaten it. It seems like a healthier way, but I think that the really healthy thing needed. Is more live tournaments, which is what's happening up in Brisbane. You know, like the world records will always be there, but it's such a solid scene up there that the players come to all over Australia and also across from North America now as well. You know, like we've seen some of the players have come out like Dwayne Richard, John McAllister, Jordan Dorrington, last year Walter and Billy Mitchell, Estelle Gonifat, Ethan Daniels, of course Barra comes over regularly, and then around Australia, like Rob McCauley comes up from Adelaide, and various people from, you know, down here, of course, like Sean Tagg and stuff from Melbourne, and Greg Pell, all those guys. So it has become the sort of focal point for the arcade scene. But even George Riley was saying in the US, he felt it had become the focal point for the arcade scene in general in America, and that because everyone was looking back this way because of what was going on. You know, the amount of activities that were happening there because it was more consolidated. You know, it wasn't as fractured.
Yeah.
You know. Because America's so big, you know, like it's not that there's so many more things going on that they can't choose to go to all of them. So luckily, it's normally happening more concentrated around Brisbane.
Mm-hmm.
So you're in the luxury spot. You're in the hot spot.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it feels like everything comes to me now, which is nice. I don't have to travel so much.
But I mean, prior to COVID, though, there was something happening every week, pretty much. If it wasn't happening at Kincaid, there was something going on. And I don't know the one-up arcade so well, but I assume they're doing similar things.
Yeah, they often they're pretty good with their tournaments. They often offered cash prizes for their arcade scenes. They would almost every time I went there would be someone trying to break another record, filming themselves playing Street Fighter or this, that, the other, and they were really good about supporting that community, which is really, really nice. But you're right, there was something happening every week, whether it was at Pincadia or at Netherworld. You always had the Brisbane Pinball Club every week. You had a Flip Frenzy going on every week. You had Big Bashes, Gala at Pincadia is one of the huge events of the year. It was really nice that it's all happening in Brisbane because nothing ever happens in Brisbane. So it's lovely.
But the other thing on that is because you played Point Blank, because you do get sort of you do get a demographic that surrounds certain games. So who was the people playing Point Blank?
My age group. About like I'm 28, so from that like 25 to I want to say about 35. Like there's certainly a few older players, But I think above that age group, it does really drop off. And below that age group, I think people are more interested in, say, Time Crisis, where it's about shooting people and not doing these like kind of fun, wacky adventures. But I do find that like most people I've engaged with in the point blank community are generally give or take 5 years either side of me. I think it's because the game came out in the mid 90s, so we all probably grew up with it, and that's it's weird. It's not a hugely diverse crowd of people who play point blank still. I think the interesting thing you said before was that Japan doesn't keep track of their high scores, and I'm pretty sure if they did, my high score would never have been accepted. It would be
really?
well below the top when it came out.
Right.
I do believe there's a lot of people in Japan who are much better at that game than I am.
Well, that's what
They just
I
don't
asked you. I had this feeling that I just was a gut feeling that it was might have been big in Japan and still is. I'm not sure, but I hear that Daytona is still very popular amongst Japanese players in Australia. You know, so there's certain games. So in the Australian arcade community, of course, Donkey Kong's strong. The weird thing is Galaga's strong, but for some reason, there's better players, but haven't put their scores up. I don't understand that. I mean, I understand that they haven't wanted to, but I know these guys are playing like Derek Broadfoot, and I'd love to see him just sit down and just think, but he's so good at so many games, but he doesn't sort of sit there and just pester himself with one game. But I think there are other, with the different tracks. I know like Jesse Bogey plays a whole bunch of later games and early 90 games, and you talk to him about those games, and it's a whole other language. They're more like a pinball machine, the way they unlock points. It's nothing like the old style arcade games. They're very different, like Raiden and things like that he plays.
We are running a little bit out of time, but you brought it up, and I do want to talk about it. So these people who are phenomenal at games, but they don't put up their scores. I personally had a little tiny bit of trouble submitting my score with the point blank record because of the way that Twin Galaxies is set out. It was basically down to my internet dropping out as I was uploading the video, and then I had to resubmit. But to resubmit, I had to earn credits to get it. I probably would have held that record for about 2 months longer because my attempt and goings on with internet providers in Australia had a little bit of difficulty with it. Do you think the Twin Galaxies, the way that they accept scores, do you think that's a detriment or a boon to the community?
I think my feeling is, I mean, Twin Galaxies is it's what the community's got, you know. Now the alternative is there are alternatives, but they require community effort. So the best thing going really is the Donkey Kong forum by far for the arcade community. You've got people like Jeremy Young, Jeff Harris, like they really know what they're doing, and then you've got the people involved in it. So all the Wes Copelands, all those guys who are involved in that community know what the game's about. Of course, you're going to have some sort of hardline guys go, "Oh, that joystick's not," you know, or those decal arts aren't original. It's just nonsense. But putting that aside, and they put MAME and arcade together, and I imagine eventually they'll probably put in the Nintendo Switch version and things like that. It'll eventually, you know, they probably will. I don't know. And they've spread it out to the anthologies. So because they've got that ranking now. You know, they've got the Donkey Kong Junior, like Donkey Kong Junior, Donkey Kong 3 plus, Crazy Kong they include in there. And if you get a good enough score, which we know Shane Saul just did, got a rank D, and there's only 2 ranked C players. I think it's Wes Copeland and Andrew Barrow. So but no one's ranked B or A yet, you know, A or B. So they've got this very clear, clean, well supported and thoroughly understood community, like where they stand with each other. And I think the best thing would be to have one of those for every track, every game. But that's why we formed the Galaga one originally, and it's grown since then. And again, like I'm not the administrator anymore, and I'm not a part of the staff of Galaga Forum, but I think that you wouldn't need one for every game because there isn't the appeal for it. Like there's games that just don't have enough appeal, but for the ones that do, you could create them. And the ones that need to be grandfathered are the sort of your Pac-Mans. Like people are they're just additionally adding to Billy Mitchell's perfect score. They're just, you know, David Race, all these guys have done it. And credit to them, but it's really academic in a way, you know, to shave time off. It's done and dusted, in my opinion. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but finding games that have a competitive behaviour. And the reason being is with Galaga Forum, if someone had problems, you could talk about things and correct things, and there was a community there that could easily get the voice out to say, yeah, that game had errors or this. But we also had, like I wrote in there, to have an off-field referee. And at that point, the off-field referee was Hank Chan. So the point was, should we ever hit a dispute where we couldn't come to a conclusion, say it was me and another referee, then we just both write down our opinions and just give it to Hank Chan and say, you give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. We just go with it. But the real thing about it now that smoothed it all out really should be the community is so big, and also Twitch.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's streaming on Twitch. You know, so it's in many ways it's like the way it was when I was doing mine. You mailed it all the way off to America and had to wait till return. And these guys were inundated with games. There's just so many games they had to get through. But so I don't know. I'm not submitting, of course, and like you talked about your game, like I sent mine at the right time. Like the world record now is 3 times higher than my score. I mean, if I was, I would not go for the world record on Galaga today. You know, yeah. Like it's and I'd literally 3 times higher. I'm not exaggerating. You know, so I'd hate to be going for the world record on Galaga now. Yeah. So I was lucky that I went for it when I did. But the thing about that, like with your score, well, it's all anecdotal. If someone said they got it, they may have, but until you submit it, you know, someone out there is the tallest man in the world, and it could be taller than official one, but until he recognise, you know, it's just, you know, it is what it is. Like I'm not, you know, you could, it's not anyone's fault that, you know, it's different. Like that thing on what was it, on the Man versus Snake or something? No, what was that one? That
the Nibbler documentary.
Yeah, was that guy in Spain or Portugal or Italy?
Italy.
Yeah. And it was in the papers there, but they weren't in communication with twin galaxies and all this sort of stuff. And you can sort of see it's not unified in that way. But going back again, that's why the Donkey Kong community is so solid, it's so unified. You know, it's so good. And the game's got such, like the top 100 scores of that game, they're pretty much all kill screens. Like it's a really competitive track. So you know where you stand. If you get like Barrow, I mean, keep mentioning just because it's, you know, was local, but he just scored 1.1 the other day, and it's number 15 in the world. Now that's huge, you know. Right. But yeah, and then when you get to number 5, that's the if it's an iceberg, you know, like you know, like it's Barrow's still beneath the water when you look at the numbers. Like the crunching of the numbers at number 1 and 2 and 3, McCurdy and Lakeman and Copeland, like to get up there is just, you know, it sort of fans out pretty wide. You know? And Barrow would agree. He would not take anything away from him. He knows to get to 1.2 is another game skill again. You know? So, but I was going to say before you go, I remember the first time I played Point Blank.
Yeah, yeah.
I was at the University of Canberra with a friend.
They had one on campus?
Yeah, they had one at the bar, the university bar there.
Yeah, I would never have gotten work done if I had gone to that university.
Well, I did. I went to the ANU, but years later I went back to do a graduate diploma for teaching. Anyway, this guy, Ed Cuthbertson, his name is, he's a principal now, and he said, "Oh, Phil, we're going to play." He goes, "I have a go at this game, Phil," and it was Point Blank, and I thought, "Oh, cool, yeah." And I'd never seen it before. Yeah. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "When something comes on screen, you basically got to shoot. I'll tell you what you do when you go along." And I'm not like, I could never do this again, but I should have given up straight away. You'll know exactly what it is. Yeah. So I said, "Oh, so I just shoot when something comes on." He said, "Yeah, right." The first thing he came on, so it's the first, you know, you got to shoot. So the first thing he came on was the feather. And it was dropping down.
Yes.
Yeah, single feather. And I just went bang, and I got it in one shot. And he said, "I thought you said you never played it." I said, "No, I haven't." He goes, "We only get 1 bullet for that." I could never do it again. It was just like, bang, you know, and got it. And of course, I'd never be able to do it again.
I still miss the leaf. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the leaf is a leaf, is it?
Yeah,
not a feather.
Yeah.
I just remember I just pulled it, like I just had it there, and I just went bang and got it. And I just thought, I thought I'd have like a shot. Yeah. I thought when he said you got to shoot it, I thought, oh yeah, like this, and I just went and got it. And I just stopped, but. You know, had I known you had 1 shot, I would have never got it, and I've never been able to repeat it since. You know, but it was just.
I was going to say, have you tried since? Because maybe you're a hidden talent in that one.
No. A mate of mine, Kirk Hone. This sounds bad because this is when he had an air rifle and we used to shoot little sparrows in the backyard and stuff. And we were in air cadets together, and our first night up there shooting with, he broke their record there for decades long. It was a really good shot with the rifle, just naturally good. It was
this is on a point blank machine, or this is actually at a?
No, that's real life. It was real life. You know, he was like Atticus Finch. He was a really good shot, and we'd be shooting birds in his backyard, being like 12, 13 with a slug gun, like an air rifle. I would aim for the bird because I invariably always miss. He would aim for the eye. I'm not joking.
Oh.
Or for the brain, the head.
Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
not,
I'm just.
he wouldn't hurt an animal now.
I just have visualizations of a bullet going.
Yeah, he's such a softy now. Like, he won't hurt anything. He wouldn't hurt any animal. He'd think it's cruel. But what I'm saying is, that was then. This is now. And I'm not a good shot with a gun at all. I'm amazed. But did you used to do the thing in point blank? Do you hold and do the thing with your finger to make it shoot? Yeah.
As a kid, yes, I absolutely. Now, not so much. It's all about the finger control, and because that is less accurate. But there are some levels where you need more shots, and accuracy doesn't matter. Other levels where accuracy really does matter. But I just find general blanket rule, it's that now.
So that's why I played Galaga. So you didn't need that finesse. You just mash the buttons.
Yeah.
Not true. The gamers now, they play with much more finesse. Like Mike Thompson, I mean, what he's doing on Galaga is incredible. It's another thing above, but he's not playing very often. But he's figured that game out.
The funny thing is, I've never fired a handgun in my life. I've never fired a firearm other than like an air rifle. So I mean, I don't really want to, but I have a lot of people who I sort of talk to about, and they're like, "Oh, I go down the shooting range. You should come with me and see how good you are." And I'm like, I don't actually want a real gun at all. I'm fine with this plastic thing with lights.
I was gifted a pistol once.
You were gifted?
But I didn't.
A pistol?
Yeah. When it was weird when the laws for getting rid of guns came in under Howard.
Yes.
I won't mention names, but a friend of mine, his father got an OBE because he marched some people out of Burma and stuff.
Okay.
And his son still had the right. He's much older than mine. Still had the pistol, and he was getting rid of it. And he goes, "Do you want it, Phil?" And I was so tempted. I thought, no, because it was just because it was a pistol. And he just smashed them all up with an axe. In the end, he just busted all the barrels. So
you could have got money for that. It was a buyback scheme.
Well, no. Well, he had. I think his feeling was, well, how do you know the police are gonna just not go into
thank you.
Else,
that's the end of the story.
Yeah, not having about the police, but you think, well, why not just break them up? If you're happy to break them up, then just break them up, which is what he did. But there is something exciting about the idea of shooting a pistol. I always talk to Glenn Updike, if I ever gets to Wisconsin, he's going to let me have a fire of his pistol. But I've never shot one either. My brother-in-law's got one. They're a shooting range. Targets, but I just want to see how hard it is.
Yeah, me too. I like the weight. Everyone says it's really heavy. Everyone says there's a lot of kickback, which you don't get a recoil on, like a plastic Namco gun. I'm curious. At a very licensed shooting range, I think is the way to do it.
Oh yeah, I'm curious to the point of like I'm not making an effort. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I certainly don't want to own one.
It's not like I'm looking up on the internet. Where can I fire a pistol? It's just if someone was there right there and said, "Oh, Phil, do you want to fire this pistol?" and say, "Yeah, all right." Bang, and then I'd go, give me another go. Bang, 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 and I'd go, "Oh, that was interesting," But I'm not someone who's, I lived in the States for a short while, and there was fire. I never went to one. The opportunity was there, but I never bothered.
Beautiful, man. All right, I got to leave you there. Thanks so much for your time there, Phil. But before we, is there anything you wanted to plug? Anywhere people can find you online?
I'm just on Facebook, I guess, and on Instagram more recently, but I'm not that active. But if anyone wants to reach out to me, they always can, and I'm more than happy to share email or anything if anyone wants it. But people can find me pretty quickly. They reach out to anyone. It's not a problem with gardening.
The BPAC website. Is there a website we can check out? ANZAP. Is there a website for ANZAP that we can check?
Yeah, it's being developed. It's going to come through BPAC. I know that the guys up there are on top of that up in Brisbane, up in your world, of putting stuff together. I just sent them up recently all the outstanding, like all the inductees and outstanding achievement and stuff, and so all that's being put together, and so hopefully there'll be something up sort of in the next, I don't know, few weeks or something. I guess the way they're going, an early beginnings of it, and there'll be some information missing, but we'll slowly compile it, and then eventually the idea is once we've got it up and going, after maybe nominations are being put together at the moment for this year, because we were going to have one up in for the Kong-Off this year, but of course that's been jumped, but we're still going to try and do some nominations. And then I think once a couple are done, we'll probably build a Wikipedia site, so it'll be more public in that way as well.
Awesome.
But the great information will be back at the BPAC site, and then we'll have some other public stuff out there.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much once again for your time. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Stay indoors.
I have to wear a mask.
You have to wear a mask. Yeah, you have to now. All right, dude. Well, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you in person before too long.
Yeah, cheers. Sounds good.
Thanks, Phil. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.